Okay, you can start now.
Yes, it's recording now. All right, students. So, first of all, let's talk a little about this subject and what are some of the strategies that you can use to ace this subject. I believe, from my understanding, the English Prescient composition paper is, on one hand, it is about your fluency and about your familiarity with the English language. And that part is tested through the synonyms, antonyms, idioms, uh, changing the voice, changing the narration, etc. The prescient composition thing is more technical, in my opinion. It is not just about how good you are at speaking English, it is more about your comprehension, your writing skills, your grammar, your fluency, your common sense in being able to connect ideas and organize ideas. All of that is tested in prescient composition. So I believe that this paper needs a very different strategy. I believe there are two separate approaches needed here. So usually my plan is that I always devise my course outline according to the needs of the class. And this paper needs two different kinds of approaches, one based on technique and comprehension, the other based on basic language skills. So this is how I plan to take along this course as well. On the one hand, we'll be focusing on the technique for Prezi writing and for composition. I'll give you some ideas on the basic techniques. There are some 3, 4 methods of attempting the Prezi. I'll give you those. Whatever suits your learning method best, you can opt for that. And then I plan to have a lot more emphasis on these two components. We will do them at the beginning, then we will continue practicing these two components throughout the course. Because I feel that these two things are the epitome of having English language proficiency. If you are good at writing, you can write a good Prezi. If you have a good understanding of the language, you can write a good Prezi. So multiple skills are being tested there. And that is why I think that we should spend more time on Prezi and composition. Apart from that, the other components are based more on uh, your familiarity or your exposure to the target language. So for that part, we will have practice. I will share resources, and I believe that in the very beginning, we'll discuss a little on what to do if you don't have uh, very good, very proficient English language skills and how to improve those quickly. What are the best ways to do that in a short time? What does, because I've been teaching it for a long time. So we have a lot of discussions on that. There are a lot of strategies, methodologies for teachers. Over the years, I've learned those. And I'll share with you some quick ways on how to learn English quickly. I can't say that I'm going to make your grammar perfect because that's a matter of practice. But the more you practice, I can promise you that, the more you practice the target language, the more you are familiar with its patterns and structures, the more you will gradually notice yourself improving. And the target here is, please don't worry about the fact that your grammar is not perfect. If it's not, that is fine. Grammar is not perfect for most of the people that we interact with, but they still manage to do pretty well in their lives. So the thing is, your target should be to to be able to communicate your point of view. If you can do that in speaking, in writing, that is enough. Functionality, if you can achieve that, it is enough. So this is what we will be striving for. I'll share with you some strategies for improving your grammar. What are some of the ways you can do that? Then I will share resources with you for grammar and composition. Then I plan to share with you some ideas on how to improve your vocabulary quickly because you can see from the last exam in the English paper that the vocabulary can get a little out of hand in those exams. So again, we'll practice some idioms. Common errors, I believe, are very important. So we'll have a practice session on that as well. how to make sure that you avoid the common errors in writing. Then when it comes to prescient composition, organization matters, connectivity of ideas matters. So these are some of the aspects that I have in mind and that I plan to share with you guys. Now, I want to talk a little about what we have to offer here at PCI and why you should be opting for this institute. You have enough exposure to CSS preparation to know that there are several choices out there. There are several big and renowned institutes. I myself have been associated with some such institutes. They have their benefits as well. The problem is they are unable to dedicate specialized attention to their students. The number of students in those classrooms are such that the teacher cannot focus on students separately. This is one of the reasons I myself prefer a mode of interaction that is more two ways. I will take your feedback. I will base my course outline on that. Once we have a class and once we know who we are dealing with, I would like to know where you stand before I devise a course for you guys. So my plan is that this kind of setup, my hope is, my expectation is, this kind of setup is going to offer me a more individual centric approach so that I can interact more with students. Okay. And I always believe that teaching has to be based on feedback. And this is what I regularly do as well. I like to interact with my students. I like to get regular feedbacks from them so that I can devise my course or change the organization of it, the sequence of things accordingly. So this is something that I believe is very important and it's meaningful. Any CSS preparation that is not focused on individual needs, because every student has an individual need, has an individual standing, individual level of proficiency. So I believe that any preparation that does not cater to that is not really meaningful. Any teaching experience is not meaningful if it's not based on what the students actually need and where they actually stand. So this is something I'm hoping that I'll be able to achieve in this classroom. And this is the purpose here, that this is the purpose why we are here. Now, let's talk a little about how to ace the prescient composition paper. Like I said before, I'll be sharing some techniques and strategies with you. But my general advice to you would be to focus more on your functionality and your understanding. I always say this to students, please stop worrying about your English language skills. Try to cultivate your mind. Try to take your mind as a garden that you have to cultivate, that you have to hone and prune and shape. And if you make that effort, it will go a long way. It will help you a lot, not just in your written exam, but also in the interview. So there are some techniques for attempting the paper that I'll also share with you. There are some techniques for preparation, and I believe comprehension is more important in all exams and in the interview part. So we'll talk a little about that as well. How you can improve that. For example, what is critical thinking? Why we need that? इस पेपर में आपको critical thinking कैसे चाहिए होगी? When you will attempt the composition part, you need to be able to understand the passage in all its entirety. Then you need to understand the implied ideas. That needs critical thinking. In composition paper, in the composition passage, everything is not stated. There are things that are implied, that are suggested, and meaning has to be constructed out of it, has to be squeezed out of it. So that is where your critical thinking, your comprehension skills will come in use. So I believe that the best way to go about preparation for this subject is that you take both things along. Focus on the language components, but also on the comprehension part of it. So these are some things that we'll talk about. Then one thing that is very close to my heart is organization in writing, or what is academic writing. So this is something I'll share with you. It will help you in all your other papers as well and for essay. So what is the course outline for this paper? Like I said before, I'll spend more time on um, comprehension part of it and the Prezi. I'll start with Prezi. This is my plan right now. Of course, I'll see how you people are doing and how where you stand, what is your proficiency level before I give you this Prezi. This is a big chunk of the paper. So I'll see where you stand before I decide. General idea is in my mind that I'm going to start with Prezi. We'll move on to composition. And once we have done these two, then we'll keep on practicing them because they need more attention usually and they are more difficult to understand. Then I also plan to have a session with you on grammar. I can share some resources with you that will help you gauge your own proficiency level, that will help you diagnose where you stand, what are your common mistakes, and then I'll suggest some techniques to improve that, to improve those weaknesses and how you can overcome those weaknesses quickly. What is the aggregated wisdom on that, on the part of English teachers? Then I don't plan to spend too much time on grammar because that is something we have been learning all along. I think practicing is more important. So we'll move on to now applied parts. For example, um, we'll move on to narration or change the voice. We'll move on to common errors. करते हैं and then आपको common errors उसको practice करने का तरीका होता है. So we will have a session on a couple of sessions on common errors because in English paper as well you get those common errors and you have to correct them. Generally, I believe it's a good way to practice your language, paying attention to common errors in writing. Those can be grammatical and those can be of organization as well. So we'll focus on that. And I have gathered some resources for synonyms, antonyms. The best way to go is through the past papers. So I've started collecting those resources and I'll share those with you as well. Um, okay, let's talk about evaluation and feedback. I expect that if a teacher is spending energy and effort on the students, then I expect regular feedback from them. So be ready for a lot of work, for a lot of home assignments, and I expect you to promptly do those things. It is your time you'll be wasting if you don't do those assignments on time. So let's make a commitment here that if you are a part of the class, you will be giving regular feedback, and I'll be checking those things. I'll be regularly returning it to you that check work. All right. Another thing is that I believe evaluation has to be not just for the whole class. I believe that evaluation should be catered to each and every student. My general technique with my students used to be that I would give one feedback for the whole class. Those are common mistakes that all students make. But at another level, I usually like to point out patterns for each student. For example, some people have a real issue with articles, and that affects their clarity. Some people have an issue with prepositions, right? Those are the general common mistakes that they have. Some people have an issue with fragments. They write fragments, not complete sentences. They assume they are writing complete sentences. So I like to point out certain patterns of English language for my students so that they can pay more attention to those particular mistakes. Of course, there are some mistakes that we all make, and I'll point out that for the whole class. But there are certain quirks and certain patterns in each one of our what should I say, what we produce, output that we produce in the language. So I like to point out those patterns as well. That is my plan for the evaluation part, for the feedback part. As for resources, some resources that I have collected are from the past papers. Some are compilations from standard books like Exploring the World of English. Some are resources available on the internet. There are some very good books over the internet written by foreign authors on synonyms or antonyms or how to build your vocabulary. There are also international um, language tests, and I plan to get their lists as well. For example, there's Barron's 1100, then there's the GRE list. I expect you to memorize those because you can also see from the last few exams in English language that sometimes they like to give you a very far-fetched sort of vocabulary that a normal person doesn't really know. So it's better to memorize those things. It's better to be on the safe side. The good thing about your batch would be that you're starting well in time. So if you take this course and then once you're done with it, you start your own preparation, you pick your own pace, and then you can keep on practicing that. The good thing about your batch is going to be that you are going to have a lot of time to practice it. So it'll be easier to set a base for you guys on which you can then keep on building. All right. I believe I have communicated to you the basics of our orientation session. If you have any questions, let's have a 10-15 minute Q&A session. And please feel free to ask your questions. For those who came late, I'm going to introduce myself one more time so um, you can shape your questions accordingly. My name is Anam Babur. I have been teaching English for the past 7 years. I cleared CSS exam in 2019. I stood first in KPK and eighth all over Pakistan. So now I belong to the Pakistan Administrative Service. And I think that's it. That's what's relevant to you guys. I have an MPhil in English literature and an MPhil in IR. So I think that is also something that you should know, you should keep in mind. Hanji, any questions now? You can raise your hand and I can go to the list of participants, or you can unmute yourself. Usually students have a lot of misgivings about the English paper. I just like to say here, it's no mystery, it's no rocket science. If you follow a good strategy, if you're willing to invest enough time and effort into it, you don't have to be afraid of English. What we lack is not language skills only. What we lack are basics of academic writing. I think those are more problematic. Not knowing how to organize your writing, how to brainstorm, and how to stay on track, how to keep yourself relevant. That's more of a problem, I think, for our students.
Anam, what are your views about this paper जिसके बारे में सब बात कर रहे हैं कि synonym antonyms और ये सारी चीज़ें बहुत difficult आई तो how to tackle this problem?
My point of view is that if you are prepared well enough, usually you are able to surpass these hurdles. Look, there is no way that the exam can be predicted. And what you can do is prepare as thoroughly as possible. I can tell you for a fact that in many of the papers in 2019, the papers were unexpected. One clear example is the paper of political science. It's about theory, and political science paper 2 is about constitutions. But we did not get that. Papers were very unexpected. They seemed more like Pakistan affairs papers. So you should be prepared enough to make something of what you get at that moment when there is no other way, when there's no other choice. You should be prepared well enough to make the best of it in the exam. This is my point of view. Exams are often unexpected. I think if you have command over your subject, it's not a problem then. Yes, anything else from those people who just arrived?
I think we don't have questions. आपको सुनना चाहते हैं? Some question from Abbas Khan.
जी जी, can he unmute himself?
I think Abbas Khan asked you that according to you, what is the most important thing for essay preparation?
Essay preparation.
Hmm.
For me, it's not just language. Essay, I don't think, is at all about language. For essay, you need to have a good scheme of organization. I wouldn't say there's one important thing, I would say there are three important things. Your scheme of organization is important. सिर्फ knowledge को आपने scatter नहीं कर देना across the page. It has to be well structured. It has to be organized. Secondly, it needs to be relevant. Thirdly, it needs to be logically sound. ठीक है? तो अगर आपके sound arguments नहीं है, अगर आप logically flow में नहीं चल रहे, अगर आपकी writing organized नहीं है, if any of these is lacking, then you can't perform well in the essay paper. English is not an ingredient there, not an essential ingredient there. Functionality is, अगर आप communicate कर पाते हैं आपके point of view, that is enough, right? But there are three things you need for writing a good essay: organization, sound arguments, and it should be well structured. Hanji, another question by Mohsen, I believe.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम मैम.
Walaikum salam, ji Mohsen.
Ma'am, am I clear to you?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, ma'am. I have an issue to debate over here. I have appeared in 2021 just recently in CSS. I have a few issues. I have faced few issues over there. As one of your student was he is just asking that what is the cornerstone of writing and good essay. I have faced few problems over there. For example, I have material over there. I have excess vocabulary over there. But as you are saying that organization, the thing which I have felt that you have a lot lack of time over there, and you have to organize all of the things in a very shorter time. For that purpose, you need to practice more and more, which which was my weak area. And what you recommend, it would be obviously you will say that to do more and more practice and to give mock exams. So for that, are you will be available there? What is your recommendations? Thank you.
I'll certainly be available. I'd just like to remind you that I'm teaching English Precis and Composition. I think for essay, we have another gentleman from my batch. Uh, so, yes, this is our strategy. This is our motto basically, to give feedback as frequently as possible. And like I said before, we believe in individualized attention. I, as a teacher, believe in individualized attention, and I like to cater my course to according to the needs of the students. This is my philosophy of teaching. Uh, Whoever teaches you essay, yes, I can guarantee that giving feedback, regular feedback, will be a part of it. Otherwise, learning is compromised. Okay, there are a couple of questions in chat too, I believe. I'll just read out the question for you guys so you know what we are talking about. A student is asking that he has a problem with vocabulary and he wants me to suggest some specific sources for vocabulary. And should we go through the dictionary completely? No, you don't have to go through the dictionary. Like I mentioned, there are some resources, there are some international testing services, and they also have lists of vocabulary published. Then there is also CSS specific vocabulary. You can learn something from past papers, for example. And sometimes in the objectives part, especially, objective part of the paper, past questions, past synonyms, antonyms, etc., get repeated. So, yes, I can share resources with you. and we can set aside some time. By the way, interestingly, there are also some strategies for improving your vocabulary quickly. There's a theory in language learning about it. So I'll try to share those with you, and I'll try to share some practices with you as well, which will help you in learning vocabulary quickly. एक बहुत अगर आपको आसान तरीका बताऊं तो वो ये होगा. The first thing you need to do is you can go for Barron's 1100 list, or you can go for the GRE list, right? This is the thing you can start with. Dictionary को याद करने का ना सोचें. I think on the safer side इनको इन लिस्ट को कर लेना भी बहुत है. और आप मोस्ट रिपीटेड वर्ड्स देख लें, उनकी लिस्ट अगर आपको मिल जाती है वो आप कर लें. ठीक है? What I can do for you is I will share some strategies in class and some practices, because I feel that language is learned more quickly through practice, through interaction in that target language, through output, than by memorizing or absorbing things. Okay?
And then one of them was asking what you will teach. So, Madam will teach English Pressy and composition.
Yes, I just saw the question and I was wondering maybe he missed the session. But basically, I'll be teaching English Precis and composition. And बच्चे आप आपको ये जो कोई भी बुक मिल जाती है वहां से ग्रामर की पढ़ सकते हैं खुद ही भी. ठीक है? फिर आप सोचोगे कि मैं यहाँ पे क्या पढ़ूंगा. Like I said before, if you're not practicing it, if you're not getting feedback on it, you need guided learning. ठीक है? ऐसे तो आप घर बैठ के भी 10 लिख लेंगे ना. फॉर एग्जाम्पल प्रेसी आप घर बैठ के 10 प्रेसी लिख लेंगे. कोई तो हो ना जो आपको बताए कि प्रेसी की टेक्निक क्या है, उसको ठीक कैसे करना है, what is the best way to go about it. Like I said before, I've been teaching English for 7 years, and then I cleared my CSS in 2019. So I can tell you both sides of the picture. That is what I'll be teaching. English के generally क्या strategies improve करने की, CSS specific approaches क्या है. ठीक है? This is what I'll be doing. But the duration and timing depends on the class, depends on the PSI admin, depends on the needs of the students, depends on their proficiency. ठीक है? तो ये अभी ये finalize नहीं हुआ है. Something will be shared with you soon once you register for the course. Hanji, anything else? Students are still coming in, although we are near to the close of the session.
And next session is about current affairs. So,
Yes, that's an important one. When does it start, Ms. Green?
at 7 o'clock.
All right.
So, if there are
Mohsin, you
no
raised your
questions,
hand.
then
Ji, sorry.
yeah, sure. Yeah, sure.
I think Mohsin raised his hand. Mohsin, do you have something to ask? Let me unmute you. हाँ जी मोहसिन.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम मैम.
वालेकुम सलाम.
अच्छा मैम, आपने प्रेसी का पेपर तो देखा होगा. आप मुझे अभी पता चला कि आप प्रेसी और कंपोजिशन पढ़ाएंगे, तो सो दैट्स व्हाई आई जस्ट केम टू नो राइट नाउ. अच्छा, तो ऐसा था कि जैसे ही प्रेसी का जो वो फर्स्ट ऑब्जेक्टिव पार्ट हमारे पास आया तो सभी स्टूडेंट्स को तो पसीने छूट गए थे उसमें. बिकॉज आपने भी देखा होगा कि उसमें तो हार्डली मुझे 1 या 2 वर्ड आते थे. तो उसमें क्योंकि नेक्स्ट टाइम भी वो शॉक कर सकता है हमें. उसमें इडियम्स भी देख लें आप लोग कि वो भी बिल्कुल हट के आप इडियम सॉरी कह रहा हूँ कि वो जो आपके वर्ड्स थे आपके वो भी अब मतलब कि से हट के थे रूटीन से. तो उसमें आपकी क्या स्ट्रेटजी होगी कि हम वो दोबारा से पसीने ना उस तरीके से छूटे हमारे. थैंक यू.
देखिए, इसको हल करने का जो तरीका मुझे आता है ना, वो ये है कि आप अपनी प्रेपरेशन इतनी साउंड रखें कि आप शॉक ना हो. एक मैं आपको बता दूं वोकैबुलरी के बारे में. उसमें कोई गारंटी नहीं है कि आपको किस तरह के वर्ड्स आते हैं। ये जो वर्ड्स लग रहे हैं ना, ये जो वर्ड्स आए, अगर आपको लग रहा है कि आपको नहीं आते थे, दैट्स अ बैड थिंग। मुझे लगता है किसी को भी नहीं आते थे, किसी नॉर्मल इंसान को ये लफ्ज आने ही नहीं चाहिए, अनलेस वो डिक्शनरी लिख रहा है इंग्लिश पे। बहरहाल, मेरा पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू ये है कि पेपर बैलेंस्ड होता है। मेरे टाइम पे मुझे याद है 2019 के पेपर में कि अगर प्रेसी मुश्किल थी तो कॉम्पोजिशन आसान थी। ठीक है, अगर वोकैबुलरी मुश्किल आई तो कुछ कंपोनेंट्स कॉम्पनसेट करने के लिए भी थे। तो वो आपके लैंग्वेज स्किल्स कहीं ना कहीं से सामने आ जाते हैं उनके, और वो वहां आपको फेल करने के नहीं बैठे होते। अगर आप डेमोन्स्ट्रेट करते हैं कि आपको बेसिक लैंग्वेज प्रोफिशिएंसी है और बेसिक कॉम्प्रिहेंशन स्किल्स हैं आपके, यू कैन क्लियर द सब्जेक्ट। रही बात इसकी कि कंटिजेंसी मेजर क्या है, सपोज कि ऐसा पेपर दोबारा से आ जाता है, तो कंटिजेंसी मेजर ये है कि वोकैबुलरी को एज थॉरली एज ह्यूमनली पॉसिबल कवर किया जाए। ठीक है, डिफरेंट रिसोर्सेज पूल करके, मेरा पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू ये है कि मैं डिफरेंट रिसोर्सेज पूल करके पास्ट पेपर्स को देख के आपसे शेयर करूँ। वो आपके एंड से क्या रिक्वायर्ड है कि आप उसको गो थ्रू करें। आप लोगों को ये बहुत बड़ा फायदा है कि आप जल्दी स्टार्ट कर रहे हैं तैयारी। ठीक है, राइट आफ्टर द एग्जाम यू हैव वन होल ईयर नाउ। ये चीजें इस टाइम पे करना ज्यादा पॉसिबल होता है। अभी से बैठ के इडियम याद करना, अभी से बैठ के वोकैबुलरी बिल्ड करना ज्यादा पॉसिबल होता है। एग्जाम के करीब जाके जो लोग करते हैं ना ये कोशिश, उसमें ये होता है कि आपके पास यू हैव टू फोकस ऑन द मोर इम्पोर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट्स ऑफ अ पेपर फॉर दिस पेपर, दैट इज प्रेसी एंड कॉम्पोजिशन। तो फिर आपके लिए ना ये मेमोराइजेशन वाली चीजों का टाइम नहीं बचता है। तो प्रेपरेशन जो है वो फिर आपको अभी से बेस जो बिल्ड करनी है ना, यू कैन स्टार्ट फ्रॉम दैट फ्रॉम दिस टाइम। ठीक है, मेरा क्या इसके लिए स्ट्रेटेजी अगर आपने पूछी, मेरी स्ट्रेटेजी है कि मैं आपसे रिसोर्सेज डाइवर्स शेयर करूं। ठीक है, चांसेस ऑफ बीइंग सरप्राइज्ड इन दिस ब्रूटल मैनर शुड बी मिनिमाइज्ड। एलिमिनेट तो होते नहीं है कभी, सरप्राइज तो आपको दे सकते हैं ना एफपीएससी वाले कभी भी, लेकिन हम ये कर सकते हैं कि अपनी तैयारी अच्छी कर लें, हम मल्टीपल सोर्सेज से पढ़ लें। ठीक है, और हम कोशिश करें कि हम अपना जो बेस है वो अच्छी कर लें लैंग्वेज की, ताकि हमें अगर एक पेपर का साइड ऐसी आ भी जाती है तो हम कहीं और कॉम्पनसेट कर लें उससे। ठीक है, दिस इज व्हाट आई बिलीव। All right, I think you have another session now, so I'll stop here. If you have another question, you can ask me. एक चले आखिरी क्वेश्चन एड्रेस कर लेते हैं, which is about, just give me a minute.
Sure.
एक क्वेश्चन आखिरी पूछा
Thank
गया, वो मैं
you.
आंसर कर देती हूँ कि आपको कितना टाइम लगा। बच्चे ये वाला सवाल ना पूछा करें आप, क्योंकि इट डजेंट रियली मैटर। मुझे टाइम लगा फर्ज करें 3-4 महीने। ठीक है, उसकी वजह थी आई वॉज ऑलरेडी टीचिंग। आपका टाइम जो लगेगा ना, दैट शुड बी स्पेसिफिक टू यू, दैट शुड बी स्पेसिफिक टू योर स्ट्रेंथ्स एंड योर वीकनेसेस, राइट? तो वो आपके हिसाब से होगा। तैयारी कैसे करनी है ये मैं आपको बता सकती हूँ, पेस क्या रखनी है ये आपका अपना डिसीजन होगा फिर। ठीक है, so I wish you best of luck for the next session and for your preparation, and I'll see you all in the class inshallah some other day.
Thank you so much, Anam. So informative. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Miss Amreen. Have a good day. Allah Hafiz.
You will love this.